What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Touchdowns to Home Runs SEC football pick show. Now, today I'm going to be doing things a bit differently. I'm going to stretch this video out a lot longer and make these more in-depth analysis and everything. I just want to go through, I really want to dive deep into each of these games because technically this is rivalry weekend. Normally, it's this Thanksgiving weekend, and we have games like we'll have Florida State, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, Clemson. All three of those games are no longer happening. Also, like Kentucky, Louisville, all those out-of-conference rivalry games can't happen this year due to COVID. But we still got some of the in-SEC rivalry games. We got Tennessee, Vandy, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, A&M, Missouri, Arkansas, games like that. So we still have some good games, and we have some makeshift rivalry games in there. So I just want to go through each and every single one of these games, give my analysis, my pick, my prediction, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy this video because it is going to be a longer one than what we're normally used to. So let's enjoy it. Let's see what we got here. So starting off at 12 o'clock, on SEC Network, we have the Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Missouri Tigers. Obviously, this is a rivalry game. So going into last week, Arkansas loses the game to LSU. I picked Arkansas in this game. I thought Arkansas would have had this game. It was a late push by LSU to come back and win this game. Arkansas was winning, I'm pretty sure, in the fourth quarter, but it was LSU who was able to come out with the win in this one. This game was in Fayetteville, which I thought that Arkansas would have had this game. In my opinion, they were playing like the better team, and this game was at home. I thought that Arkansas had it hands down, but obviously I was wrong. Felipe Franks still threw for 339 yards in this game. He was the leading rusher for Arkansas, which is obviously a reason, in my opinion, why they lost. You got to be able to rush the ball better than that. He only ran for 43 yards. And then you had Woods as the leading receiver with 140. And then Missouri played my Gamecocks last night. Missouri's defense is very, very good. Even though, like, South Carolina isn't an offensive powerhouse, Missouri's defense was still very, very good. Nick Bolton is a very, very good player. Baszler in the Missouri offense yesterday, they put up 17 in the first half. They got shut out the rest of the game. They're okay. They're decent, but their defense is definitely their strength, in my opinion. That defense is really, really, really good. Baszler only threw for 203 yards yesterday. You had Roundtree only rushing for 58, and then you had Chisholm with 57 yards receiving. Obviously, those stats got to be bloated if you want to score points and be able to win that game by a regional, much bigger margin than that. And against a team in Arkansas who can put up points on the scoreboard, like Felipe Franks in this offense is pretty good. This is going to be a game where Missouri's defense is going to need to step out like they've been playing recently, and a game where their offense is going to have to put up more than we're used to. So let's just look into some of the yearly stats for both of these teams. Arkansas has been putting up 25.8 points on average per game, while Missouri's only putting up 21.7. And then Arkansas's defense is allowing 30.9, and Missouri's is allowing 29.2. It's close. Obviously, Arkansas has the slight edge in points scored, and Missouri has the slight edge in points against. There's nothing really, that's not going to really tell you anything. I just thought it was interesting to throw that in there just to see how these teams have been doing. Obviously, that's going to be different because you are playing in two different divisions. Even though there's a lot more cross-division games this year, the SEC West is still probably the better division. So the fact that Arkansas is able to have the slight edge in the offensive stat going up against some of those SEC West defenses, because in my opinion they are a bit better than the SEC East ones, that's pretty impressive. Felipe Franks has thrown for over 217 yards this year. Baszler's only thrown for 1,304, and I know that Missouri has got a bunch of games canceled due to COVID recently. They had pretty sure it was the Vanderbilt one canceled and the Georgia one canceled for both of those. The key in this game, I already said it, if Missouri wants to win this game, they got to be a lot better in the ground game. They got to get their offense rolling. Baszler doesn't have to do anything special and out of the ordinary. He just has to go out there and make the right throws and everything. He's just got to put them in a good position to win this game. He's just got to make the right decisions each and every time. Arkansas, what they need to do, obviously rushing has to do better than that. Rakeem Boyd, Smith, they both got to do better. Obviously, you don't want your quarterback being your leading rusher in that game. That is not something that you want to see. Like, he rushed for 43 yards in this game. So offensively, Both teams need to step up offensively. I do feel like Missouri has the better defense in this game, but I give the slight edge to Arkansas offensively in this game. So overall, it's a tough pick for me, but I do feel like I am going to go with I'm feeling like the Razorbacks are going to come out with the win in this game. I just feel like where they're at as a program right now. Yes, they do lose to LSU last weekend. Missouri beats South Carolina, but I do feel like Arkansas is the better team. Even though this game is in Columbia, Missouri, I really like Arkansas in this game, so give me the Razorbacks. Next up, we have Kentucky and Florida. So last week, Florida plays Vanderbilt. That game was actually a lot closer than I was expected. I was expecting that to be a blowout. Vanderbilt's holding their own recently. They are not playing terrible football at all. They've actually been playing some pretty good football and playing close. So Florida was able to go out and win that game 38-17. Trask scoring for 383 yards, Pierce rushing for 55, Tony catching for 107. Everyone expected Florida to win that game. I'd say that it was a bit disappointing that they let up 17 points, and it was pretty close for the first bit of the game. It was a lot closer than people would have thought it would have been. I thought Florida would have gone in there and put up some like Ole Miss numbers against Vanderbilt. I was expecting 50-plus points from Florida, but obviously that did not happen. But I still don't think that takes away from Florida's offense. They are still really, really good. And by the way, Kyle Trask, I got in my store right now, Kyle for Heisman t-shirts, don't care which one, because of Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts, two of the greatest players in Florida football right now. So definitely go get those. Those are only $15 right now. Great quality t-shirts. I want you guys to go get those right now. Great price and everything. Christmas is coming up. It's Thanksgiving this weekend, so definitely go get those. Great Christmas present. Great for you just to have. I want to see everyone around Gainesville wearing those because you guys have the Heisman right now. Why not celebrate it and get that shirt or hoodie right now? So definitely go visit the link in the description to go get yours today. Kentucky, on the other hand, and they got manhandled by Alabama. Everyone was expecting that. No one really thought that Kentucky would have had a chance in this game, and it really showed. Like, Alabama puts up 7 in the first quarter, 21, then 14. And Kentucky scores 3 points in the first quarter, and that was it for the rest of the game. Wilson threw for 120. You had Rose rushing for 68 and Allie catching for 52. To beat Alabama, you have to score more than 3 points. Like, no question about it. Especially, they're probably the best offensive team in all of college football this year. They're so good offensively that if you're Kentucky, I wouldn't even give them a 0.1% chance to win this game if I knew that they were only going to score 3 points. I would have given it 100% to Alabama. That's how guaranteed I am that Alabama would have won this game. Like, only scoring 3 points, you have to do better than that. So let's go take a deeper look into this game. Florida, obviously, the big stat jumps out at you. They have scored 44.7 points on average each and every game, while Kentucky's only scored 20.8. That's around a 24-point difference by those teams alone in scoring offense. You got to fix that up. Now, Kentucky has the slight edge, and they've only allowed 26 points per game, and Florida's allowed around 28 points. We all know that Florida's defense isn't anything special. They're not going to knock your socks off. They are going to give up points. But when you're able to score 44 points a game, doesn't matter if your defense is allowing 28 points a game because your offense is just going to go out there and run up the scoreboard anyway. So what your defense does, they just need to make stops when they need to. Don't allow them to score every single drive. It's okay if they score once every other drive or whatever, but you just can't let them have 3 or 4 consistent drives with all touchdowns and everything like that. That's Florida's goal. If their defense just sticks up and plays good when they need to, Florida's going to come out with the win in this one. Kentucky definitely has to get better offensively in this one, no question about it. It's going to be hard for Kentucky to get going offensively. Like, they had a very, very close game against Vanderbilt. And their defense, even their defense got pretty run over by Vanderbilt. They let up 35 points to Vanderbilt on 2 weeks ago or whatever. Excuse me, I just got to get a drink here. I've been talking a lot today, lots of YouTube work. Kentucky's defense definitely has to step up, especially against Florida. Think about it. You let up 35 points against Seals and Vanderbilt. Imagine what Kyle Trask, imagine what Kadarius Toney, imagine what Grimes, imagine what Pierce and all those guys that Florida has, all the weapons that they have over there are going to do to you guys if you're a team that is allowing 35 points to Vanderbilt. Kentucky's defense definitely needs to step up. Kentucky's offense needs to score more points. The keys for the game here is exactly what I just said for Kentucky. You got to score on consistently on drives. You can't settle for field goals. Anytime you have the chance to score points, you have to execute and score a touchdown. And defense, you got to force some turnovers. You got to win the turnover battle against Florida. You got to force Kyle Trask to make mistakes. You got to force some fumbles. Do whatever you can to get the ball back into your offensive hands and not allow Florida to score. That's going to be the key for them. Keys for Florida to win this game. Just keep playing the way that you've been playing. Just keep letting Kyle Trask throw the ball. Just keep letting your playmakers make plays. Defensively, I said it already, just make stops when you need to. Every other drive, just do not let the other team score consistent touchdowns on drives, and you'll be fine. Like Florida's defense, if they allow Kentucky to score under 30 points, in my opinion, Florida's got this game in the books. So, obviously, I feel like I'm taking Florida in this one. They're the better team. Kyle Trask is playing arguably the best football out of anyone in the whole nation right now. So, I really like where Florida's at as a program right now. So, give me the Florida Gators in this one. Next up at 3:30 on CBS, we got the big CBS game. It feels like it's been forever since we have a CBS game. I can't even remember. What was the last one? I think it would have been Auburn LSU. Auburn LSU was the last CBS game. That game was in Auburn, and Auburn was able to smack LSU in that one. Ever since then, you had the You had the Texas A&M Ole Miss game get canceled last week, which was the CBS game. Before that, you had the Alabama LSU game get canceled before that one, and then I can't remember if there was one more or not. I feel like there was one more. Or I'm pretty sure that Auburn game was October 24th. I'm drawing a blank here. It is what it is. But CBS game, 3:30, the Iron Bowl. Obviously one of the most exciting games in college football each and every single year. Both of these teams are going to be ranked going into this game. Currently, Alabama's number 21 and Auburn's 23. Auburn had a win against Tennessee last night. You definitely would have liked to see more from Tanks Bigsby in that game. He seems to be like setting the identity for how Auburn plays offensively the whole game. Auburn was able to beat Tennessee 30-17. This game was a lot closer towards the beginning of the game. It was tied going into halftime, but it was the second half where Auburn was able to put up 20 points when Tennessee was only able to put up 7. That's the difference maker, just how you finish the game and everything. Auburn was able to score consistently each quarter. After the first quarter, they get shut out the first quarter, but then after that, they put up 10 points in each of the quarters. Bo Nix throws for 220 yards. Williams rushes for 66, and Anthony Schwartz catches for 84. I remember he had a deep ball touchdown. I just saw some highlights. I'm pretty sure this game was on during the South Carolina game, so I was watching that one over this one. And like I said, I already talked about this game with Kentucky. Alabama just absolutely rolled over Kentucky, like 63-3. That's FCS school numbers. Like when Alabama plays an FCS school, Alabama played a closer game to the Citadel a couple of years ago than they did Kentucky in this game. Kentucky just was not on, and Alabama was firing on every single level on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. 63 points, and you only allowed 3. Mac Jones, he only threw for 230 yards. McClellan was their leading rusher for 99, and then you had Devontae catching for 144. This team is real good. There's a reason why they have that one next to their name. Alabama is the best team in the nation for a reason. It's not just a fluke. It's not just because what they've done in previous years. This team is really good. Like, let's look at a box score from some of the, let's see. Devontae catches 9 receptions, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mechie had 1. You had Naji Harris rushing for 2. You had McClellan rushing for 1. Williams rushing for 1. Robinson rushing for 1. It was just like everyone was handing out touchdowns. It was like an Oprah Winfrey show. I don't know why did I say opera. That made me sound stupid. I know it's Oprah. I just screwed up there. But Mac Jones, he threw 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 16 for 24. You got to see Bryce Young in at the end of the game, and he threw a touchdown to Devontae Smith. It's great to see the future of Alabama football getting in Young because he is a great quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks of his class, so it was really good to get him to see him in this game. But let's get into the Iron Bowl because this is going to be a very exciting game. Obviously, you have Auburn winning last year on the... How'd that game end? I watched that game last year. I'm pretty sure it was an offside penalty that cost it for Alabama last year. Someone jumped offside for Alabama last year, and that was the game. But then you also had the missed field goal late in that game. I remember you had like the 100-yard pick six that was like thrown to Naji Harris's wrong shoulder, and he turned around and he like tipped it up to one of the Auburn guys, and he ran all the way. That was a very exciting game, a very good game. Bo Nix played really well that game. But the main difference here is that this game is in Alabama. This game is not in Auburn. That is a huge difference because I can't remember the last time that Auburn beat Alabama in Alabama. Would it have been 2010 back when Cam was on the team? I feel like that would have been the last time. I may be wrong on that, but I feel like that would have been the last time that Auburn did beat Alabama in Alabama. This game usually favors Auburn's way when they are playing in Auburn. They have a better chance of beating Alabama when they are playing at home. If Alabama's playing at home here, even though there is no fan or there isn't full capacity of fans in here, and the way that Alabama's been playing, 49.4 points per game when Auburn's only putting up 28.6. Alabama's only allowed 19.3 points a game, while Auburn's allowed 22. Total passing yards a game, 500, or total yards per game, 548 yards for Alabama. Auburn's putting up 402, which is still decent, but the other team's putting up 548 total yards a game. That is something special that they got there in Tuscaloosa. I've said it again. This is the best offense in all of college football. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind that this Alabama offense is the best because even though you lose Jalen Waddle earlier in the season in that Tennessee game, Devontae Smith is arguably one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in college football right now. Naji Harris, in my opinion, I've said this each and every week, in my opinion, he's the best running back in all of college football. I'd take him over Etienne. I'd take him over Chuba. I'd take him over all those guys. He is an NFL ready back. He's been NFL ready for a while, and I love that he came back for another year. I really, really like Naji Harris. He's already rushed for 16 touchdowns this year, 797 yards. I don't know if him and Kevin Harris was the leading rusher for the SEC coming into this game. I think he still is because neither of those guys had big games yesterday, but that's because I'm pretty sure that Harris has played more games than Naji Harris, or Kevin Harris has played more games than Naji Harris has. Other than that, like I said, you have Waddle go out, but this guy named John Mechie, who's from Brampton, Ontario, where I'm from Toronto, and we both live like 45. He was born like 45 minutes away. Both Canadian boys. I love watching this kid play. Not only because he's Canadian, but he is a good football player. I love seeing Canadians in college football, especially when they're on Alabama, a team like that. He's caught for 4 touchdowns this year, 535 yards. This guy is the future of Alabama football in that receiving core. Alabama is wide receiver no question about it. I could argue till the sun goes down about how amazing Alabama wide receivers are. There is no university that I would take that has better wide receivers over Alabama in any given scenario. Like, not a chance. Not a chance. But enough of me talking and ranting, or not really ranting, but gloating on Alabama's offense. Let's talk about this Auburn offense because this team can roll. When these guys get going, this team can roll. Bo Nix obviously has been shaky this year at some points, but there has been other points where he's been playing really good. Obviously, that LSU game that I was talking about earlier, that CBS game, that was a bright spot for Auburn and their offense this season. Can they get back to that? And I feel like it all really starts with their running back in Tank Bigsby. 5-star running back. He's a freshman. He comes in this year. He has been playing lights out so far for Auburn and a real bright spot for the future of Auburn. He has rushed for 527 yards, 5 touchdowns this year, but he's also really good receiving wise. He's only caught for 11 receptions and 84 yards, but I really like him receiving. If they can get this guy more touches, just get the ball in his hands, it opens up the rest of the offense so much more in my opinion, this is one of my favorite players in college football right now. Seth Williams, wide receiver out of Auburn. Love watching him play. He's just a guy, I don't really feel like he's going to beat you with his feet. He's not going to be like Anthony Schwartz. He's not going to be a guy who will sprint past you. He's not going to be a guy to juke you out and everything. He can catch every single ball. I love watching Seth Williams play. I hope he goes in the first round of the draft. I hope he goes to my Chicago Bears because we definitely need some help in the receiving game. Anthony Schwartz is the fastest player in college football. Both of those guys, if you're able to get Bigsby going and Bo Nix is playing well and you're able to get Williams and Schwartz out in the open field, that's going to be dangerous. That's got to get Alabama thinking and everything. That's going to get their defense, because we have seen Alabama's defense can be a weakness at some points. You see, they allowed like 50-plus points to Ole Miss, I'm pretty sure, this season. That was probably the best game I've watched all year so far, other than Notre Dame Clemson. I remember watching that Alabama-Ole Miss game, and I was blown away. That was a very, very entertaining game. That was a nice, fun game to watch, fun football. This game is tough for me to pick because as much as I like Alabama this season, as much as I think that they're the best team in the nation, Auburn always likes to put up a fight and screw around with Alabama and their schedule, because this is different. Auburn could be 0-7 at this point, and Alabama could still be 7-0, but Auburn is still going to put up the same fight that they are now, because you know this is a rivalry game. You know how much this means to the people of Alabama, because you're either in Alabama, you're either an Auburn fan, or you're an Alabama fan. There's no in between unless you have like the South Alabama or UAB fans. I've never met a fan of either of those teams, so it's either Alabama or Auburn, but this game's at home. Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time. You got the greatest offense in all of college football. You got one of the Heisman favorites in Mac Jones. You got some of the best receivers in the game. You got the best running back. It is just way too hard to pick against Alabama in this game. It's way too hard. I know it's a rivalry game, but Alabama's the best team. They got a 1 next to their name for a reason, so give me the Alabama Crimson Tide in this game. Next up, coming up at 4 o'clock on SEC Network. This game's coming to you from Oxford, Mississippi, and we got the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State versus Ole Miss. Now, I've mentioned this before. Ole Miss did not get to play last week due to COVID concerns. Their game versus Texas A&M, which was going to be the CBS game, got canceled. I was actually really excited for that one because Ole Miss has one of the best offenses in the SEC, and Texas A&M is a team that is trying to make a playoff push right now. That could have been a trap game easily for Texas A&M, and I think that's why they earned the CBS slot in that game, because that game had a lot of hype around it. It had a lot of interest in it, and I would have loved to watch that game. It was sad that that one got canceled. I'm not sure if that's going to be pushed to the end of the season. It might be. I don't know how the rest of the season finishes out with COVID, because there's still a lot to go on and a lot to figure out, but I'd still love to see that game be played. Mississippi State, on the other hand, Will Rogers comes in as the quarterback. He plays pretty well, 336 yards throwing. You got Johnson rushing for 19. Obviously, you got to get, if he's your leading rusher, 19 yards. I know that Mississippi State is the air raid and everything, but you got to rush more than 19 yards, especially against Georgia. You need way more than that. And then you got Whaley catching for 115. Mississippi State only lost by 7 to Georgia. Georgia's a very good football team. Now, I know I've said this a ton before, that the mood of Georgia's season has shifted ever since that Florida loss, because their expectation every single year is you either win the SEC East, then you go to the SEC Championship, then you try to make the playoff. That's not going to happen this year. Unless Florida loses the next 2 games to, I'm pretty sure they have 3 games. They got Kentucky, then they got Tennessee, then they got LSU coming up. If they drop all of those or 2 of those and Georgia wins out, which in my opinion, that's not going to happen for Florida, Georgia can squeak in there, but like I said, it's not going to happen. So Mississippi State actually played a very, very close game versus Georgia this weekend. That game was in Georgia. Does Will Rogers come into this game against Ole Miss? This is a big rivalry game. We all know what happened last year when Elijah Moore scores the touchdown, pretends to pee on the fire hydrant like a dog, and then that costs them, moves the field or the PAT back. And then their kicker just goes and botches the extra point, and Mississippi State goes and celebrates because they won the Egg Bowl. There's definitely going to be some revenge in that game, especially for Elijah Moore. This is going to be a very entertaining game. You got Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach going at it for the first time for the Battle of Mississippi. I can't wait for this one. This is actually a game that I've been waiting for since the beginning of the season. I know I was really, really hyped on Mississippi State after the first game. Who wasn't? Like, Mississippi State fans were all as high as the clouds. Even I was. I made a video talking about are the Bulldogs playoff contenders and everything. Obviously, that was me riding the high and everything, and I just like talking about that stuff. When that stuff gets hot and everything and people start talking about it, I really like to just go and talk about it myself, because it's fun for me to go out and just talk about sports. Like, that's what I do on this channel. I just come out here, give my opinion on what's going on in sports and everything. So I was riding that Mississippi State high, but even though that Mississippi State has taken a seat back ever since that game, I'm still really intrigued by this game because it's a rivalry game. You never know what can happen in these rivalry games. We all know what happened last year. You got two new head coaches going at it for both teams this year. So this game, in my opinion, is actually going to be very, very entertaining, and a game you should definitely watch out for, because this game's going to be close. In my opinion, this game is going to be close. It's going to be an offensive shootout. So let's just take a look at some of the stats that each of these teams have put up this year. Big stat here. I said it's going to be an offensive shootout. Mississippi State has put up 17.4 points a game, and Ole Miss averages 41. It's just a small little gap there. So obviously you're going to have that close in. But here's another one. Mississippi State has only allowed 28 points per game this season, and Ole Miss has allowed about 41. So obviously Mississippi State's defense is better than Ole Miss's defense, but Ole Miss's offense is way better than Mississippi State's offense. Matt Corral is playing like one of the best quarterbacks. They got to put some respect on his name, because what he's able to do in the SEC, he's going up against SEC defenses still. I don't care that they're not playing to par this year. I don't care like they're playing. He's still playing some of the best defenses in all of college football. I don't care what you say. Matt Corral definitely deserves more respect than he gets. He's thrown for 2,359 yards, 22 touchdowns. He has thrown for 9 interceptions. Obviously, you want to clear that up, but it is what it is. When you're able to put up that amount of points a game, you throw an interception, It is what it is. Jerron Ely is rushed for 608 yards. He's rushed for 8 touchdowns and 117 attempts. Elijah Moore is the leading receiver in the SEC, 74 receptions for 1,054 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's definitely one of the best receivers in all of college football. Definitely a top 3 receiver in the SEC. I've seen rankings where Elijah Moore is like the second best player in all the SEC, because that's just what he's doing this year. Yeboah's had a big year too. He's caught for 509 yards, 6 touchdowns as a tight end. Mingo, 19 receptions, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. You got talent all over this offense. A ton of these guys are going to be going to the NFL, and they're going to keep running up the scoreboard. So Mississippi State, key to this game, especially the secondary, they're going to be tested a lot, because we just played Mississippi State. South Carolina played Mississippi State a couple of weeks ago, and we found out very quickly how good that Ole Miss offense was. We got absolutely torched in that game. Like, Corral threw for 500 plus. You had Elijah Moore catching for, I can't remember how many yards, but it was bad. Like, there was points where he was wide open in the middle field. So this Mississippi State secondary is going to definitely be tested, and they're going to be forced to step up and make some big plays, because you got to win the turnover battle. If you want to beat Ole Miss this year, you got to take the ball out of their offense's hands, and the only way to do that is to force turnovers. So that is going to be a huge key for Mississippi State this year in this Egg Bowl. And obviously, another huge key is going to be score points. You got to do something like you did in that LSU game. You got to score points, because Ole Miss is going to score points. You're not going to shut them out. You're not going to keep them under 10. You're not going to keep them under 20. Do your best to score as many points as you can, and allow the defense to try to make some turnovers happen and get the ball back in your hands. When the defense makes plays and gets the ball back in your hands, you got to execute on those. You got to score touchdowns. Do not settle for field goals. Be aggressive. Take touchdowns when you can get them. I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot here. How long have we been going for in this video? About 30 minutes now. Back to what I was saying. When you have the ball in your hands on offense for Mississippi State, and your defense has got you that ball, You need to score touchdowns. No field goals in this game. Field goals are 3 points. Touchdowns are 6 points plus the PAT. That's going to be 7 points. You need to take those 7 points. You cannot settle for field goals against a Mississippi team that is going to run up the scoreboard and score touchdowns. Mississippi doesn't settle for field goals. They will go for fourth downs. They will keep the ball moving. Lane Kiffin is an aggressive coach. That's why I love him so much, because he is such a fun and exciting coach. Like you saw in that South Carolina game, when Elijah Moore was wide open in the middle of the field, Lane Kiffin chucks his clipboard up and everything. He went for a ton of fourth downs in that game. He was just able to keep the chains moving and everything. He makes the decisions like he wants to win the game, not that he wants to play the game safe and keep his job. That's why I admire Lane Kiffin, and that's why I want for South Carolina a coach like him. So Mike Leach, keys to the game: win the turnover battle, score touchdowns, not field goals. You have to score touchdowns. You got to use that air raid. If you're going to use it, you got to use it properly. You got to limit the amount of interceptions Will Rogers will throw this weekend, or Costello. I'm guessing it's going to be Will Rogers being at quarterback. Keys for the game for Mississippi State: just keep doing what you've been doing all season. Find Elijah Moore in the open field. Find all your receivers. Get the ground game going. Just open up. Just force turnovers and everything against a Mississippi State team that has constantly been turning over the ball. All Ole Miss has to do. I know Ole Miss's defense is a weak spot, but if you force 1 or 2 turnovers in this game, I think that you win easy. If you allow 30 points of this game, I think you win easy. There's a lot of scenarios where I think Ole Miss wins this game. This game is in Oxford, 4 o'clock start on SEC Network. I really like where Ole Miss is at in this game, so give me the Rebels in this one. I am taking Ole Miss. Next up, how many games do we got left? 3 games left. I have only been through 4 games, and it's been about half an hour of me talking. This is the longest video I've ever done, by far. By far. Next up, this is a very interesting one as well. This is a very intriguing game between LSU and Texas A&M. This game is coming at you on ESPN, 7 o'clock. LSU was able to win this game last year. Obviously, that was Joe Burrow's last game in Death Valley, the game where he came out with this jersey on here. If I flip this around, I know that's giving Texas A&M fans a hard time. I'm not even really an LSU fan. I just have the jersey because I love Joe. Crap. I screwed. Stay. There we go. I screwed the jersey up. Like I was saying, I'm not really an LSU fan. I just, watching Joe Burrow and the rest of that LSU team, I'm a fan of that 2019 LSU team. You can call me a bandwagon. I'm not going out and saying, oh, I've been an LSU fan since day one or whatever, blah, 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 blah. I just liked watching them. I love watching college football, and to watch a team that explosive and everything, I was like, I have to get a Joe Burrow jersey or something for that team, because even though they weren't my favorite team, that was just so fun and exciting to watch that team all season long. So Texas A&M fans, I apologize for having that Joe Burrow jersey behind you that says Burrow, because that's what happened last homecoming game, and they took care of business in that one. But the game before that was the 7 OT win. The last game that LSU played in Texas A&M was the 7 OT win. I think it was 74-72 for Texas A&M in that game. That's one of the craziest games that college football has ever seen, and that it probably will ever see for a long, long time. It was an insane game. You take a game that long, seven overtimes. I can't imagine. If you stayed up for that whole game, that LSU Texas A&M game, or you were there and you stayed the whole time, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it, because that's pretty impressive. I would have stayed because I love sports and everything. I didn't really watch it on TV. I can't remember. I think I was watching the South Carolina game that night. When was that? Yeah, that would have been 2018. So I was watching the South Carolina Clemson game that night. So I didn't stay up for that one because I wasn't really watching it to begin with. But that is pretty impressive. So let's get to this year. What did LSU do this weekend? LSU goes out and they beat Arkansas. We talked about this earlier in the video when we talked about the Arkansas and Missouri game. I picked Arkansas in this game. I didn't expect TJ Finley to have as good of a game as he did, especially against an Arkansas team that has been playing pretty hot this year. I really like where Arkansas is at, but it was LSU in this one coming out and getting it done, getting business done in this one. They won 27-24 with a late comeback versus Arkansas. Finley threw for 271 yards. You had David Price rushing for 104, and you had Terrace Marshall catching for 57. Terrace Marshall is one of the best receivers in college football right now. Obviously, he was on that team that I was talking about earlier, the national championship team. He's one of the only guys on that team because they have all left. And then Texas A&M, obviously, we talked about it just with the game before. Ole Miss, that game got canceled. That game was very intriguing. I was excited to watch that one because that was definitely a trap game for Texas A&M. If they want to make the playoff, that was definitely a game that they had to prove that they could shut down a very good offense. There's nothing really to prove offensively for Texas A&M in this game, but defensively against Ole Miss, that was a game to prove, and I hope that they play this game towards the end of the season. I don't know if it's going to happen still with COVID and everything, but I would really love to watch that game. Get a quick drink in there. Let's look at some of the stats between these two teams. Like, you have LSU scoring an average of 34 points and Texas A&M scoring an average of 34 points. So that is I obviously rounded those numbers into, like, if I'm being honest, LSU has 34.3 and Texas A&M has 33.7. So if you want to be all statistical and stuff, LSU does have the advantage offensively in this game. They score more points per game. Defensively, LSU allows 32 points, while Texas A&M only allows 25. What Texas A&M has really been good at, I'm pretty sure that they have not allowed a sack since the Alabama game, because that offensive line has been played so good. I was hearing that stat lingering around. I can't remember, who did Texas A&M play before or after South Carolina, because I don't know what happened that game. I don't know if they allowed a sack in that one. Oh, yeah, their game against Tennessee got postponed. So, yeah, they have not allowed Kellen Mond to be sacked since that Alabama game. LSU's definitely got to get to the quarterback. That is going to be a huge key to the game. Make Kellen Mond scramble around, keep him contained, and get sacks. Even though it's extremely hard, that is going to be a key to the game, because if you don't pick up any sacks, you're going to be allowing Kellen Mond to take a sweet time in the backfield and really wind up those passes, because this Texas A&M offense is very good. Isaiah Spiller is one of the better running backs in the SEC. He's been having a great year. He's rushed for 643 yards for 5 touchdowns. You have Smith catching for 312, 5 touchdowns. Wider catching for 311 for 4 touchdowns. Lane catching 311 for 2 touchdowns. You got playmakers all over this team. Lots of depth on this Texas A&M team. Defensively, Texas A&M is a good team defensively. No question in my mind. They have that 5 next to their name for a reason. It's going to be, I love this playoff scenario this year because there's so many different things that can happen. Like last year, you knew it was going to be LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, and then Oklahoma. There really wasn't any question about who was going to get in there. But this year, you're going to have Alabama. You're going to have Ohio State. You're going to have Notre Dame or Clemson. Depends on what happens. Like, this is another thing. Whatever happens in that game in the ACC championship could determine what's going to happen here. Then you got teams like Texas A&M, Florida fighting for it, Cincinnati fighting for it, BYU, teams like, actually Wisconsin lost. So you're going to have teams like Northwestern, maybe Indiana. They did lose to Ohio State, but if Indiana wins out the rest of the season, you're going to have a team like that. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if Oregon lost last night to UCLA, but they might be up there. USC might be up there. There's a lot of teams that are fighting for that last playoff spot, and I think Texas A&M is definitely deserving of it. No matter what happens, 2 SEC teams, in my opinion, deserve that playoff spot. I don't care if Notre Dame and Clemson both have 1 loss or whatever. I don't care. I want to see a team like Texas A&M in the playoff. But for that to happen, they got to take his business against LSU. Just keep doing what I've said this for all the teams that have been good this season, but just honestly, just keep doing what you're doing if you're Texas A&M. If that offensive line holds up, they don't allow Kellen Mond to get sacked, they don't need to put up some crazy number of points in this game. Like, let's be honest, they only got to put up 38 or 35 or something, not 38, 28 or 35 or something like that. I do feel like this Texas A&M defense will definitely hold LSU under that 25 mark, especially with the new freshman quarterback in. They do have some weapons on this offense, but there's been question marks all over the field all year long for LSU. So that's going to be something really, really that Texas A&M just has to do. Like, they just got to keep playing like they do all season. For LSU to win this game, win the turnover battle. I've said that for every single team. You got to get to the quarterback. I've said that. You have to score points. You got to score lots of points. And I don't know what else to say. Like, LSU is going to have a lot go their way to be able to win this game, because it is going to be a hard-fought battle for LSU. But in my opinion, this game is in Kyle Field. It's a night game at Kyle Field on ESPN. Texas A&M is fighting for their life now to make that playoff spot, so I am taking the Aggies in this one. Okay, so we got 2 games left now. My Gamecocks playing. This is our Clemson game this year. This is the game this is our big rivalry game this year. We play the Georgia Bulldogs, and we all know what happened last year. South Carolina goes into Sanford Stadium. No one suspects that we're going to win that game. I'm pretty sure the spread was 24 points or something like that. It was just a regular noon game on ESPN, and of course, in double overtime off of a missed field goal by Rodrigo Blankenship, the Gamecocks were able to go in and take care of business and beat those Bulldogs. That was one of the best moments of being a Gamecocks fan for me. Obviously, we haven't had many because we've never won a national championship. We haven't made a good bowl game in who knows how long. It was a good game for me. Obviously, it was an outlier for the rest of the season because we did not play well for the rest of the year. But it is what it is. We beat Georgia last year, and this time we get the game at home, 7:30 on SEC Network. Luke Doty comes in last night, and he actually plays pretty good for the Gamecocks. It was an exciting game to watch because we finally have a mobile quarterback. Obviously, if you watch that game, he was really shaky throwing the ball. Him throwing the ball last night was less than stellar because he had a lot of problems with the deep ball. But what really separated him from Colin Hill, because Colin Hill was a guy who also had tons of problems throwing the ball last night, Luke Doty can scramble and run and make his own plays, which really, really helps our offensive line. I listened to our interviews last night with some of our offensive linemen. One guy specifically, Sedarius Hutcherson, he's like, it's a lot easier to protect and everything when you got a guy that can scramble out. Colin Hill was not able to be mobile and get out of those pocket pressures that he was getting. He was always taking sacks. Luke Doty was able to take those issues and everything that we had where Colin Hill would have got sacked, and he was able to turn that into first down to keep the chains moving. That's why we only scored 10 points. I'm not going to come up here and say that Luke Doty is the next Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or something like that, but it is an exciting future. If he can figure out his arm, we have an exciting future down there in Columbia, South Carolina, for what our Gamecocks can do at the quarterback position. I know that we have trouble all over the receiving core. Shi Smith just goes down, who's one of the best receivers in college football. I feel like I've said that about a ton of guys in this video, but the SEC has good wide receivers, no question about it. Whew. Okay, I've been talking a long time. Georgia, now, on the other hand, let's talk about them. What did the Georgia Bulldogs do last night? They play a very close game against Mississippi State. They finally wore their black uniforms. I love those uniforms. I did a reaction video on those uniforms when they came out, those ones and the national championship ones, and I absolutely love them. Even though I'm a Gamecocks fan, even though I'm not a big fan of Georgia at all, those uniforms were absolutely unbelievable, and I was so excited. That was one of the best videos I ever made. How the fans reacted to it and everything did amazing for me, got me 10,000 plus views. Georgia fans were actually pretty nice to me, considering I said I'm a Gamecocks fan. I think it was just because I was talking nice about their team. But Georgia plays a very close game against Mississippi State last night. I said it before. Georgia, the mood of the season has changed because they go out, they lose to Florida, and that's not the expectation for Bulldogs football. That's not the expectation for the people of Georgia. They want to win. Georgia is one of the most elite programs in all of college football. They're a blue blood of college football for a reason, and coming second in the SEC East is less than expectation, 100%. They always want to win. They want to win the SEC East. They want to win the SEC championship, and they want to make the college football playoff. They still got a bitter taste in their mouth from that national championship to Alabama, where they let Devontae Smith score a touchdown after sacking Tua for a huge loss, and it looked like they had that natty in the bag. They want to get back at that. They're not going to have their shot again at Alabama this year because, in my opinion, Florida is going to win out and be able to win the SEC East this year. I don't see how Georgia's going to win. It's not a done deal yet. It's not like, oh, Georgia has no chance. They're officially eliminated, but if we're being honest, Florida's not going to lose their next couple games or whatever. It's just not going to happen. Like, Florida's a really good team. They're playing really good offensively. I just don't see it. So, Georgia, I said it, the mood of the season has changed, but they bring in JT Daniels yesterday, and he actually played really, really well for them. I feel like Georgia fans are going to be very bitter about that because quarterback was one of the main reasons they lost to Florida. They lost to Alabama and stuff. The quarterback play definitely had to be better at points from Stetson Bennett. And you had this guy in JT Daniels on the bench. I know he was dealing with injuries and stuff, but there were some points where you could have brought him in. I got to take a deep breath. But he threw for 401 yards yesterday. Zamir White, this was the big factor why this game was so close. Georgia's main rusher, Zamir White, only rushed for 21 yards. And I think I heard that like Georgia only rushed for like 8 yards or something in the second half. Like, that's terrible. Like, Georgia's a team that when their rushing game gets going, that team is very lethal. I remember against Auburn, that game early on in the season, Georgia was absolutely able to destroy the line of scrimmage, and that was a main reason why they were able to just take care of business in that game. That was a game where I took Auburn. That was a game before I really found out the identity of what Georgia was like at the beginning of that season. I also took Georgia to beat Alabama because I was like, this offensive line is playing really well. This rushing game is doing really well. This defense is really good. 21 yards for your main rusher. You're playing South Carolina, a team that, yes, they do fire their head coach and everything, but any team in the SEC, like, if you want to win most of the time, you're going to have to rush over 21 yards. Yes, you rushed 21 yards and you beat Mississippi State, but you still got to rush more than that. Like, you should put up more than 31 points, even though JT did have a very, very, very good game against Mississippi State. You still would like to rush more than 21 yards. That's going to be a huge thing that needs to improve in this South Carolina game for Georgia to come back and be competitive and maybe make a better bowl game. I don't think that they're making a New Year's Six. That's going to go to either Florida or Texas A&M or both of them. But Georgia's still going to be fighting for like a Citrus Bowl, Outback Bowl, or someone. They will want to play someone good. At least in my opinion, if you're a Georgia fan, you want to be in a decent bowl game. You don't want to go into the Birmingham Bowl or Belk Bowl or Music City Bowl, something like that. You'd like to play in a somewhat competitive bowl game. So they're still going to want to win this game, in my opinion. Like, you're never going to want to lose a game. Especially, I feel like the revenge game. This is a revenge game for Georgia because of what happened last year. All the guys that were in that game last year, that cost them a chance at, who knows, making a playoff, because if they go undefeated for the rest of the season, yes, they get smacked by LSU in the SEC championship, but who's to say that you put Georgia in instead of Oklahoma in that scenario last year? So Georgia gets another shot at LSU in the exact same stadium for the Peach Bowl. Probably the same thing would have happened, but that's another playoff appearance for Georgia. That's 2 instead of 1 that South Carolina just ruined. So you're going to have the revenge game. These players are going to be motivated. Keys for South Carolina: keep doing what you're doing on defense. The defense was very impressive last night, especially after 3 of our top secondary players opt out of the season. Our defensive line was able to get after the quarterback. Kinsley Enagbari had a good game yesterday. Ernest Jones is one of the best tacklers in all of college football and the SEC right now. If they keep doing what they're doing on the line and getting pressure on the quarterback, get pressure on JT Daniels, the secondary, they got to make plays. You're going to have, if you're a Georgia fan, I'd feel comfortable with passing the ball in this game because our secondary is weak right now. But our secondary just has to close the holes when we need to. Obviously, we know that Georgia's going to get some open passing situations. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. The problem is just how often do we allow that to happen and how often can we stop that? That's going to be a key for the game for South Carolina. The secondary definitely has to step up in this one. Keys for South Carolina win: run the football with Kevin Harris. That's something that we did kind of lack yesterday. I'm guessing Luke Doty's going to be the starter in this game. Get him going. Allow him to scramble. Allow him to do what he does because he is a very, very good rushing quarterback and everything. He needs to make some of his deep ball passes. That's something that he did not do last night, that if he is able to make some of his and complete some of his deep ball passes, the rest of that season and what looks to be the season for next year changes. South Carolina has a QB. I want to kind of see Ryan Helinski in too because I know he's the best passer on that team. But again, you have Luke Doty who can scramble and everything. Get the mixed looks. Change up get Georgia's defense thinking. Constantly change the guys to just tire Georgia out. I just want to see something creative by Mike Bobo. You're an intern head coach. Go out, beat Georgia. They're your former employer and everything. Go out, beat them. Just have some fun. Make some aggressive calls and everything. Just go out and have a good, fun game. In my opinion, Georgia is going to win this game. I hate to say it because I want South Carolina to win so bad. This is probably the most excited I'm going to be for game day ever since the LSU game, because the last couple games I've just been deflated by how our team's been playing because of the whole Will Muschamp thing. Our team had not been playing well at all. Up until this point, I'm kind of excited for this game because we got a new quarterback. We're playing with some new juice in that locker room and everything. I'm excited for this game day, but I overall know that Georgia's the better team. They got a new quarterback too who's starting to play really well, and Georgia is going to come out in this game firing because of the whole revenge game factor. So in this one, give me the Georgia Bulldogs, sadly, although I do expect the Gamecocks to make this a really close game. Last game, finally, we've got upon it. We got Tennessee and Vanderbilt. This game is coming to you from Vanderbilt Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. This game is 7:30 on SEC Alternate. Vanderbilt's actually been playing some good football. I don't know if you guys have noticed. They played a decent game against Florida. They put up 17 points against them and only allowed them to score 38 this weekend. Tennessee loses to Auburn. It was the second half that was just demoralizing for Tennessee. They weren't able to get anything going. They had the game tied at halftime, but they just couldn't execute at the end of that game. This is a lot of talking I've done today. Tennessee, what their keys to the game are going to have to be: throw the football. Garantano has to play a lot better than he's been playing. This is a Vanderbilt team that has a weaker defense. This is a team that you could pick apart. Eric Gray, get the ball in his hands. He's a good rushing running back. He's a good pass-catching running back. He's your playmaker. Get the ball in his hands. Let him do some things. I know that the receiving has been iffy this year. Palmer has been your main guy. Keep going to him. Keep getting him the ball. Let him make plays and everything. Just limit the amount of turnovers that Tennessee gives up, because I know that there have been lots of games this season, Kentucky in particular. That was a game where you had lots of turnovers that cost you that game. So keep the turnovers to a minimum in this game. Vanderbilt is a team that you should win if you're Tennessee, and I am going to take the Volunteers in this one. Vanderbilt keys it to the game for them to win. Vandy. Seals, just keep playing good. Keep getting the ball into your playmakers' hands, whether that be Henry Brooks, whether that be Johnson, whether that be Abdur Rahman. Keep getting the ball into their hands. Hopefully your defense can show up and make some stops when they need to. It is what it is. Just get some stops. Force some turnovers against Tennessee, because they are a team that is mistake prone. They do make mistakes when you play good. So I am going to take Tennessee in this one, but I do have Vandy making this a lot closer of a game than people will think. That is my video. I have been talking for 51 minutes now, so that is a long time. That is the longest video I've ever filmed. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Like the video down below. Like the video. Hit the like button. Comment anything about SEC football. Subscribe. And definitely come back next time. Thank you for watching, and come back next time.